Oh, okay. I'm gonna give this a little bit of a test right here. I'm gonna adjust my settings. All right. So I think I ended up starting a little bit early, just by a minute, but look at me guys, I'm back. I'm living and stuff. Look at that. I just want to thank y'all for joining me once again. Um just to do this. And if you're here for the very first time, really appreciate you. My name is Elise, for those that do not know. And so I am doing this live on boundaries. So I named this live the comfortable, uncomfortable state. And again, if you have been watching, if you watched my previous live, I talked about how this concept called the loop, and I was talking about, just different concepts and things that go along with that. And lack of boundaries is something that really does have something to do with cycles that we can get stuck in, whether that it's cycles that we can even get stuck in with our relationships, with family, friends, other type of relationships that you might have. And so I just want to get back on here because I have been having conversations with people either online and offline just about this particular subject, as I've been sharing about different things from my own personal experience and things that I've had to overcome and have to, continue to overcome. The subject of lack of boundaries really, really resonated and hit people, like, to their core. So I said, you know what, let me get on live, and I'm gonna talk about this a lot more because it's a real big issue. So just wanted to share from my personal experience. And um per usual, I know it's gonna free somebody, so we're just gonna get into it. So I'm gonna get into the there's a few anecdotes and examples that I'll share with you. But I want to first start with like what the root of this is. Like, where does the lack of boundaries actually start? And so for me, it started since childhood, right? So when you think about it, when you are fresh out your mama's womb, and and you're drawing your first breath, the first institution that is known to you is your family. Your mom, your dad, whoever your guardian may be. Like, that is the very first institution we have, is family, before we start getting older, and then we go to daycare, and then so we then start meeting our teachers and our peers and whatever. Like, before all that happens, or even for those for people who have grown up going to church, like, before you even meet the church folk and whatever, the family is the first institution. They're the ones that you really you latch onto, basically. And so, yeah, so family, your home has a super duper big impact on you. And so for me, um that's where it kind of started, where I kind of got these. And again, this is not something that was so much directly said to me, but children, when you're a child, you pick up on things, you know what I mean? So someone can tell you that you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you should be like this, or you should be like that. But then there's also some of the indirect things that you can pick up as a child. And so one of the big things for me is my relationship with my dad. And so my my mom, there was really, really big stark differences between my mom and my dad. It was like night and day. And so my dad was more of a, I guess, for lack of a better term, like more of like a hard man. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't connect with him as well as I could with my mom. I feel like, he definitely, I'm not gonna say that he's a heartless man, but he just I don't think he was particularly empathetic. Let's just say that. And so with him, um, you know, uh with him, he's very, and also too, let me backtrack a little bit too, because some of this stuff is really, really cultural as well. And so, FYI for the viewers that are watching and that don't know, I'm Haitian. I was born here in America, but I'm Haitian, and so there's kind of something within the culture, and I think that whether you're Haitian or not, you could probably relate to this as well. Of like, a parent or parents where it's like you have to kind of do what they say. Like there's no rooms for if, buts, or maybes. It's got to be like, if I say do, you do, and anything else kind of comes off as disrespectful. So I think for him, um, you know, if I if I ask questions, even asking an innocent question, um, kind of came off as a undermining of his authority. When I would just like, if I asked him, hey, can I go over so and so's house or something, if it, and then he said no, then I would be like, oh well, why? And then that would just trigger something, you know what I mean? And then just also other things that I would share, if I would share something from somebody that he didn't particularly like, that set him off. Like a lot of things set him off. And I think that kind of, as a side note, this isn't directly into the boundaries thing, but maybe kind of is that actually kind of shut me down too. So that kind of shut me down. But um so that was part of my childhood, but also just in direct relations to boundaries and how I kind of became a people pleaser, or kind of wanting to look good to everyone, and always serve people, was because of also just like the sort of reward system you would get, right? So if you if you did good, if you got good grades, you were celebrated, you're patted on the back. If you didn't get such good grades, you weren't. And so there was different things. I won't get into too much in depth, but they're signaling like that when when you are well received and when you're not. And so through so starting from childhood, I was picking up uh things where I was favored. So if ever I fell short of it, I kind of was like, well, let me kind of cover that up, or I won't say stuff, or I would kind of uh what do you call it, like kind of do like white lies, right? Like I would tell part of the truth, because I'm like, I want favor, I want acceptance, I don't want rejection, right? So um and so that is the root of it, of like, okay, people love me when I do what they're asking, but no, kind of wasn't accepted. And this is very, very multi-layered. So hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. And if it doesn't, let me know in the chat. But so I was receiving all this about like, okay, and even within the culture too, it's like you kind of end up being like the product of what your parents want you to be. You know what I mean? You might have dreams of things that you want to do, but there's things in there might be things in your culture that's like approved. So for example, if you came up and you said that you wanted to be a singer, but the family really feels like you should be a doctor or whatever, they might be like, what are you doing? Or, and I think this really pertains a lot to like creative jobs. Like people are just kind of like, oh, well, you're not gonna make money doing that. Like, come on, like, like, how far do you think you're gonna go? Let's be realistic, whatever. So, um, so in a lot of cultures too, you kind of find yourself conforming to what the ideal image of success looks like for your family or whatever. So there was a whole bunch of things being deposited into me, a whole lot of signaling that I was picking up, um, all indirect, but and that's the thing. When you're a child, you're like a sponge, so you really, really just soak this up. So, um, me realizing that I really, really wanted to be in favor, it made me serve a lot, do what I could to get uh uh um yeah, to get people's favor, to get people's acceptance, because I really didn't like the feeling of rejection. I don't think any child does. And so um yeah, and so it's just like, and stuff like that follows you into your adult life, where you keep trying to avoid that rejection, right? So this is why what you pour into your child is super duper important. And I hope that if any parents are watching, please do consider how you treat your kids, because like that's gonna follow them for a long time. There's something psychological with that, and so to be a parent is not easy. To be a parent is something that you gotta really, really be delicate with, because that could really make or break your child. So that's a side note. But anyways, that's where it started. So it started since childhood, and I just want to get into a few anecdotes and things about like how something from back then, from when I was a young child, from when I was a preteen or a teenager, how that now I'm now well, I wouldn't say I'm like grown, like I'm grown enough, you know what I mean? I've hit the new decade of my life. I'm now 30, despite the fact that everyone still thinks looks at me and thinks I'm 14. But yeah, so I'm growner than you might think, but I'm not super duper grown. Um, but anyways, right? So I'm talking about things that happened decades ago that I had to really, really unlearn, and that you might be in a similar situation. So, so because of that, right? Because of lack of boundaries and just being a yes person and feeling like, okay, that's the way that gets me liked, that's the way that gets me accepted, and things like that. I actually had a prior living situation where and that went on for some, honestly, I think that, again, because of lack of boundaries, I think that this situation went on longer than it needed to. um but I ended up having an apartment with somebody, and yeah, that just was not yeah, yeah, woo, that was just not, let's just say that was not the best living arrangement. And again, my lack of boundaries made me stay in a situation that wasn't favorable longer than I needed to. There were so many signs, and as a matter of fact, signs that were actually there quite early, signaling me that like we like this wasn't really meant to be long term. Um, Again, I'm self-reflective, and so I know that I'm not perfect, and so whatever. But I think that with this person, what was happening is that she actually ended up being very, very controlling and kind of even manipulative as well. And the thing is that because I'm, by nature, I'm kind and I want to give grace, and I was also just being sympathetic to just different things that I know about her life. And so I was just like, no, well, let me just try. I'm gonna I'm gonna do my best. I don't want to give up on her, and I still I still I still pray for her, and wish her the best, because I got love in my heart. But I had to make a decision about like really if I wanted to stay in that or not. But yeah, so my whole thing was just like, yeah, I think that I can, really just I can, and this is not the only situation either. I'm just using this as an example. I think in many relationships where like people were kind of like not the best for me, or at least people that I may have had to deal with in doses, it was like I was just like, yeah, I'm not gonna give up on them. I'm going to change them with my love, or whatever stupid nonsense I was telling myself at the time. But I thought the power of love and the power of friendship was really gonna change them, when really that really has to be an inner choice. Like, the people got to choose it. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna say that, like, that don't really work, but it's just like, if people are not really doing the inner work, then it don't work, right? So I think for me, there were things that I definitely saw, and things that were repetitive, and I basically subscribed to it. I was like, okay, she likes this, or this person likes this particular setup. So let me do my best to do that. But at the end of the day, it just kind of didn't work. And I kept looking at myself like, what am I doing wrong or whatever? And so there were certain compromises that even I made, that I'm like, okay, well, I know that she's okay with this. I'm not particularly comfortable with it, but because it makes her happy, let me do that. You know what I mean? And I think that people, people aren't dumb. They pick up on these things very, very easily. And so I think I don't know if it's something like direct, but I think there's something that signals them, that says, okay, yeah, I think I can get away with this, or I can get away with that. Like, and so because I tolerated a lot, because I was really just like, let me do my best to have grace, and because really ultimately I misunderstood the meaning of forgiveness, and that's a big one. Forgiveness does not mean that you have to stay. Does Forgiveness does not mean that you have to tolerate people's toxicity. You know what I mean? Forgiveness means that, you're not going to hold on to that. You're not going to give it your energy. And when you think about the person, or you look on the person, you don't harbor hatred. Like, those were the things that was really what forgiveness was really about. But I misunderstood that, um, especially because, like, and I think that um, we misunderstand that in our families, but even I will say too, because I grew up going to church. I think that that also is a misconception, even taught in churches too, that, like, that forgiveness means that you just, like, that you stick with the person, and, like, kind of like allow them to, like, whatever. But I was like, it wasn't good for me, because I allowed myself to be an emotional punching bag a lot of the time. um and whenever I, like, really got, like, you know what, because that's the thing about me, is that I this is me at my base. I'm very kind of whatever, but there's sometimes where, like, I can't understand, like, what I've done on my end, when I know for a fact, like, I'm not perfect. When I know for a fact, like, I ain't even do nothing, and you still testy, like, that's when the guard drops. And I'm just like, you know what? Nah. And then when that would happen with people, that was when, they kind of calmed down, and then we would try to work it out, and then I would feel like we would make some sort of resolution, right? But it was very, very short lived, and people would repeat, and, like, it was just a very dangerous cycle, all because I could not say, you know what, this actually isn't right. I don't think that I need to tolerate this. You know, um, and yeah, what else was I going to add to that? Yeah, and there was just also, yeah, I felt like there were other, like, compromises and sacrifices that I think that I was making, just so that I wouldn't. It was like walking on eggshells, and I think a lot of people can, like, resonate with that, especially, like, if you are, especially if, like, you're, like, in a relationship with, like, a toxic person, or, like, a narcissist, you might be able to, like, relate to that, where it's just like, at some point, like, things start out good in the beginning, but at some point you start to really see things in their character, but you love them, right? And then you're just like, okay, well, let me not set them off. You know what I mean? So I felt like that's kind of what it was too, where it's just like any little thing could set them off. And it was just, you know what I mean? So that is a little piece there where, there's just been, like, living situations where, when I didn't have boundaries, um, it gave me a lot of stress, even anxiety. That's the thing too about, like, if you don't have boundaries and you start getting overwhelmed with stuff, it actually manifests in you physically. Like I was like my stomach was like literally turning sometimes in the morning. It just like so yeah, it impacts your physical health. And so yeah, mental health pro tip for you, please do take boundaries seriously, assess your relationships, assess everything, just so that you don't get overly stressed. And you know what I mean? But yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. And I'm hoping that wasn't too vague. But if y'all have questions at the end, like we can certainly do so, or questions for me in the comments. But so that's how it kind of like manifested for me in living situations where like I just allowed a lot of things that I really didn't have to. Um, and I think out of the sake of keeping the peace, I think I swallowed a lot of stuff when I should have just been a grown up and been like, hey, you know what, this ain't okay. It wasn't until like the last like year that I was just like really like I let it be known in different ways that like certain things in their behavior wasn't good, and like that I just felt like I can't take this. But it was really in the last year when I really was just like, you know what, my days are numbered. Like I just but that came way too late. And the thing is that if you don't speak up and say something, and you're not honest, and really the reason why I was not honest is because I was kind of like I didn't want the war. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want the drama. I was very much a peacekeeper, not a peacemaker. And so I'm just over here like whatever I can do to keep the peace, I'll do whatever. And so that sets you up big time for lack of boundaries. So um yeah. And then so that's a piece of like personal life that I can share with you. And then continuing to go on now, church. Okay. And so before I even, because I'm going to talk about serving and other things, but I just want to put this disclaimer out here. I am not encourage anyone who's watching that is like in church. Disclaimer, I'm not telling you not to serve. Please do serve at your church. Like, get, really, really, really do what you can to edify the body and this, that, and whatever. Please do. But I am speaking about this um in case you have experienced this, and just to bring these things to life, but also just to share about my experience, because the church I came from is not, I mean, to even use the word church, I feel a little bit not comfortable saying, because there were so many issues with that. And like if anyone who knows me personally or has watched some of the previous videos on my channel, you know that like it ain't really a church. It's a congregation of people, but yeah. Do it serve God? Conversation for another day. But anyways, this place that this the congregation I grew up going to, right, like, because I was really just like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is God's church, this is God's people, whatever. Like at my core, in my nature, I very much am, I would say, like, I'm very much a servant, I'm very much a helper. Like it's just within my nature. I thought that I wasn't, but I realized people sometimes just really don't have to ask me to do stuff. If I sense there's a problem, I do it. And so, so I was doing a lot, a lot of it voluntarily, but then there were times where I feel like I wanted to say no. But sometimes when you are in sometimes when you're in a church, there's memes out there, and it's funny as a meme, but actually it actually is indicative of a deeper issue. When they talk about you being voluntold, so you're not volunteering no more. It's not like you just decide, it's you're being voluntold. Yeah, we laugh about that, but that's one of those things of like, we're all laughing at our pain, because like, why are people forcing us to do anything, right? So yeah, due to lack of boundaries, like I was doing everything under the sun. Again, most of it I wanted to do, some of it I felt compelled to do. And I think that other people probably could resonate with this too, where it's just like, and it's the reason why it's really funny, because I was recently thinking about, why do I over explain things? You know what I mean? Like, when I when I say yes, it's yes, right? But when I say no, right, I have a hard time saying no. One, because like I've just been cultivated into a people pleaser. But two, um, it's like I felt like I needed a valid reason to say no. You know what I mean? So a recent lesson that I've been learning is that no is a complete sentence. It's a complete sentence. And it don't matter if, I got a personal emergency going on, or if I just want to sit down and play some video games today, or watch something, or read a book. Like it doesn't actually matter. Or if I just want to take a nap, like I'm tired. You know what I mean? Like no is a complete sentence, but I think from coming out of that environment, there was like, because people would, if you said no, the statement or the question followed up would be, okay, well, why, what's going on? That made me feel like, okay, well, I need to have something going on. And if I didn't really have nothing going on, or this, right, or if it was like, that the excuse that I gave wasn't good enough, right? That they'll be like, oh, well, you gotta really like figure out your priority. You gotta put the kingdom first and this and that, or whatever. And I'm just like, but I kind of got some homework to do. And you know what the crazy thing about this is that somebody's probably gonna watch this and laugh at me and be like, yo, you a big hypocrite. Because that's exactly, because I'm telling you, that's the exact thing that I was telling some other people too. Like I was like, nah, you gotta be dedicated, because I was very much a product of that place. Woo wee. And so when other people had like some important things to do, it's just like, well, you know, well, you gotta really prioritize this meeting, or you really gotta, it was almost as if we had this like invisible rubric to kind of judge people's spirituality. It was weird, y'all. It was really weird. And I just want to say sorry for anybody who I've done this to, and you're watching this right now. Just know from the bottom of my heart, I am so sorry. When it sometimes ignorant people, when you in ignorance, you do some ignorant things. And so part of my ignorance, part of my insensitivity, I pray that you will forgive me, and that you will laugh at me. You will laugh at me, laugh with me, and forgive me. But yeah, so you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that's sort of level of control, right? And that's the thing. And that is that's like a boundaries, because it's just like, shouldn't nobody be able to run you like that, right? Like, the only reason why stuff like that was able to happen was because I allowed it. And the same thing with the previous thing I was telling you, like with some of my living experiences. Some of this stuff happened because I didn't put my foot down and say, hey, like, you can't talk to me no type of way, or hey, like, you hurt me when you do this, and or whatever. And granted, maybe people might not care, but like, if they don't take into consideration how I feel, or they semi took into consideration how I feel and made these kind of like short term changes, but then reverted back into whatever they were doing, then that just lets me know, okay, well, this ain't the place for me. And that's something too that I think that I'm learning, that I really want to impart to you guys, is you can't make nobody do nothing. And if they don't want to change, then it's just like, all right, then I will adjust. I'm not interested in changing people. And, sometimes, you might get backlash about that. I know that I have. It's just like, wow, you're so heartless. You're so this. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. I was trying to work with you, and you not working with me. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna switch up how I do things. So don't try to change nobody. You can only really communicate, like, as you start to come into wanting to have boundaries with people, like, certain things are going to come out in people, and you just got to be firm and just know, be confident that you're doing the right thing as well, because that's the thing too, like, you could be, people can guilt trip you. So just so that I stay on track because I have a tendency to go on many tangents, but I hope this is making sense to you all. Um, but yeah, so that was what was going on with that. And I think another thing too that um congregations and not even and again, I know that like I'm speaking specifically on my experience, but there are other environments like this too. And what I will also say is that with the whole voluntold thing, sometimes it could actually be good churches as well, and they just like don't realize that they're doing it. But regardless, I'm just putting it out there. Um, so yeah, so that was so serving was a huge thing. If a leader came to you to talk about something, and you was just like, no, you had to have an approvable excuse, which don't make no sense. It's just like, come on, dog. And I think other aspects of it too was just like, like I feel like there were just other things that I subscribed to too, because like in that environment, it wasn't so much even just like being recommended or voluntold to do things here and there, or to serve in a certain capacity, but it was even like um, things regarding dating. You know what I mean? Like and again, I understand that not every region, because in case anyone from my old church is watching this, I know this has come up many times. Oh, well, that's not in my region. Okay, cool. But I'm just saying, in general, this is what was going on. Like there was definitely like this whole like this real restriction behind dating, this approval of like, oh, kind of like this gauging of like who you should date, who you could date. It kind or oh, a big one is advice, right? So it's just like so there was different things like that. You know, just things that were kind of like when you really, really sit to think about it, were kind of intrusive. It's just like you what gives you the right or authority to tell me how I'm gonna move with my life. Like what? Like you don't you shouldn't have the authority to do that. Like you're not God. And in many cases, like they're not your parents either. So it's just like what how how does that work? But again, very much a peace very much a peacekeeper, not a peacemaker. I think I was also at the time kind of young and impressionable. So I was just like, all right, y'all must know I'm new to this. Y'all are like double and borderline triple my age. So all right. And so I respect elders. I feel like they have a lot to give. But when you just think about, oh well, this person's older than me, sometimes age just don't. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to come at nobody. I don't know where this is going at this point. I'm not trying to come at nobody older. I promise. I promise you, I respect my elders. But like, what I will say is this as a side tip: just because you older, don't mean you right. That's what I'm gonna say. And if that makes you mad, I'm sorry. I guess we could tussle offline. But like ageism really just ticks me off, and that was also part of what I was dealing with in previous living situations, like all my life. Like even my dad would use like ageism, like what I mean, like you would hear that within your family of like, oh, well, I'm older than you or something, like just something. I'm just really realizing that like ageism going to bring people straight to hell with gasoline draws on if we don't claim our mind and have that boundary to be like, that don't actually sound right, and I'm not going to do it. So yeah. Sheesh, I'm just having a good time, guys. Sorry, this is like not. This is quite informal. But anyways, so yeah, nobody should have been able to have that sort of say so in my life. Like again, advice is good. If people have input, if they have feedback, absolutely. But you know, if you're just accepting everything, or if you if you're just can't speak. If you're just accepting everything, um, and not considering burnout, like that's bad. And that was the thing about me too, is that I did do a lot of serving, which again, majority of it I was happy to do. And the one time I did say no, like majority of the time if I did say no, it's because literally because I was already doing 5,000 things. So I couldn't take the 5,000 in one thing. So I was like a little what do you call it? Like a worker bee or something. Like that was me. You know what I mean? When I think that something's a good cause, like I work it. I work it. So but yeah, so that's what's going on with that. And yeah, and if you're telling somebody, no, I can't do that, and somebody's like trying to guilt trip you or whatever, like that's huge red flag. So I hope that part is gonna free somebody. Like you can't you can't yeah, you can't allow nobody to step over you like that. Um and now I'm gonna go over to work because again, right? So I'm getting semi-surgical with this. I tried not to keep things too long, but I wanted to get a little surgical because you gotta know how this could really hit in your life. So another thing was work, right? And I think that this is gonna be a something that a lot of people could relate to as well. Is if you don't have boundaries around work, like I was lacking in, what happens? Okay, it hit 5 o'clock. I'm supposed to be out the door. I'm supposed to be going ahead and living my normal life. And then what am I doing? Oh, I'm taking some work home. Oh, I'm still checking my emails. I'm still answering emails. Like that's the thing too. And that's the thing too. There's it's funny because the person that sent you an email at 6 p.m., they also have a lack of boundaries because it's just like we was done at 5. So here go one person with a lack of boundaries messaging me, another person and me who also does not have who has lack of boundaries is going to end up responding to that other, and we just a big lack of boundary family just going back and forth after hours when we should be like when we should be eating, when we should be spending time with our family, when we should be spending time and kikiing with our friends. Like why are we on the email? And I had found out something working my current job. Actually, I was doing this uh, self-care webinar thing, and I found out a very interesting fact about France. So France and there's some other countries within in Europe. I think there's a lot of countries in Europe, and then even some within the some countries within Africa. I can't remember all of them, but I feel like Kenya was one of them. Regardless, right? Do you know that it's like by law they said that like your boss should not like they can't like legally reach out to you after hours. Like it's literally a law. Like they cannot do it. Yeah. And I was just like, ooh, America would never. North America. Or actually let me specify because America, first of all, there's North and South, and then like North America also includes Canada. So I'm going to specify the United States would never, and they really should, because we need to sit down somewhere. We need to sit down somewhere. So, yeah, but like we're way too like, especially if you up north. Woo, being a northerner is something. So like, yeah. So so that was me. I wasn't like and I don't even know why I was doing all that. It didn't nobody twist my arm to do none of that. I don't know if I was trying to be. I don't know what I was trying to be. I guess, but again, I think it would. I think it had to do with my people pleasing. Like I just really wanted to people please. I wanted to serve, and I wanted to be accepted. So yeah, it trickled. Yeah, there it is. It trickled into my work, y'all, and that's why I was doing what I was doing. And it wasn't until some folks really talked to me and was just like, well, work's always gonna be there. And I was like, oh, you're right. You know what I mean? It's just like, and it was just like, and the thing is too, is that, when you start to experience burnout or you start to feel like, man, I don't. Where's the time for myself? Like when you start to like when you get that quick move, if it's just like even if you have 2 minutes, that 2 minutes be hitting you, and you're just like, yo, like what did I do all day? Like do I have a lot? Like I feel like I'm busy. I feel like people are trying to hit me up. They want to spend time with me. I'm missing these. Like why am I? What am I doing? Or even if you have the free time, you done like say if you work Monday through Friday, and you did all your time, and then by the weekend you actually in theory you have time, but you feel so tired, just like oh I can't go out. Like I just want to stay home. You know what I mean? So that was what was going on with me. And so work life balance is super duper important. And I so when I started to like hear from friends and they were kind of helping me out, I said, all right, I mean, like I got to make sure I clock out at 5. And one experience that I actually went through just like a couple of years ago, which is partially why I left that, which was basically the thing that let me know I definitely got to leave this place. But there was a job that I was working at that time, and the summer was so crazy. Like it was a lot going on. I was doing my and the thing is that I'm somebody where you can't really tell if I'm stressed or whatever. So even though things were chaotic, like homegirl, I don't know, for some reason I'm really good with working in chaos. And if something's not chaotic, sometimes I'd be like, something must be wrong. Because I'm just used to storms. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, things was really hectic at the time. And they were switching me around here and there, and I was trying to like really have an open dialogue with my supervisor, right? So I was getting better with it. Um, I will add this in really quick that implementing boundaries sometimes you need help, and so so I do, if you guys watch my previous video, I do have a counselor. So she was definitely instrumental in helping me be able to speak up for myself and say, hey, I don't know about this, or maybe we could do that. So I was having a dialogue with my supervisor at the time, and I said, okay, um, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do, because there were certain needs kind of coming up and all this stuff. And yeah, and so long story short, was totally ignored. People did not listen to me. What I was originally working on, they tossed me over to work on another project. And the thing is that I basically was inheriting work from somebody who they had taken off or whatever. Um, so that other person who was taking care of what they had now appointed me to take care of, they were sent to like work on some other things, and they had me taken over. But everything was such a hot, like there was so much to catch up on, and I was really really like frustrated. I was pissed off because I'm like, man, like when you had me working this over here, working in this office with this group of with this team and whatever, like baby girl was getting it done because I know how to do my job. So I was over here like, okay, this is gonna be great. So even though everybody was dying, I was good because I knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? Of course, I reach out to help people to make sure people's good, because that's the thing about me is that like I very much like take temperature checks. I'm like, are you good? Are you good? You good? But as far as I was concerned, baby, I was doing what I had to do, and I said, okay. And then they switched me out of something that I well established, this nice well oiled machine. They put me into the middle of a storm, and I'm like, this is raggedy. And so basically I had a lot of work to catch up on, and they were expecting me to do it as if I was working on this particular thing since the very beginning. I was just like, you gotta understand, like I'm coming into this, like you all didn't, this is not what I started with. So I'm trying to pick up the pieces of things and patch it up and make it flow. And I found myself like staying up like dumb late to do this stuff. And the thing is that and nobody really spoke to me about overtime or like at the time, like I wasn't salaried at this particular place. And so we had to punch in our time. And so I'm over here like, yo, okay, I'm out here working 10, 11 at night when I clearly supposed to clock out at 5. Like, why am I on a computer right now when I need to be like, taking a shower, getting in my PJs and going to bed? Like, what's going on here? So I remember just getting really upset that basically that my attempt at boundaries got pissed on. And then I was just like, and these people ain't paying me. And I was just like, you know what? Something got to give. And I actually talked to some people about this as well. And so they were kind of like chiming in with their advice. And I was like, you know what? Something got to shake. Because I know God don't really want me to be all like angry and frustrated and just coming through all like, just frowning. You know what I mean? So I said, all right, I gotta put a boundary out there. So I went ahead and I said, in the middle of a team meeting, I let it be known. I said, hey, like, there's a lot of things you guys are expecting, and this is me like kind of paraphrasing, but I kind of said this verbatim, but I was just like, hey, it's a lot of like I've been staying up late. I've been also noticing this is not just me, but I will speak for myself, and I'm just like, for some reason, the 35 hours that I'm working, I'm not able to catch up and be where I need to be. And so I'm staying up later to do this stuff. And I said, can I claim my time? And if not, best believe I'm clocking out at 5. Not to say that I'm not gonna work the best I can, but you like if I can't claim this time, then no. And I'm really glad that I said that because I was actually able to, my supervisor heard what I was saying. Actually, let me make it clear because I kind of had I had a direct supervisor and then I had like the manager. So it was the supervisor slash manager that like kind of ignored me, but my direct supervisor was very understanding, and so I'm glad I said what I said because I was able to claim that time and get paid. It was still a really stressful summer, um, and it's still a very stressful summer, but it was good because I was able to claim the time, and I think it also helped others that probably needed that too. Um, so so that's my little anecdote on that one about boundaries and why that's important. Like work-life balance is super duper important, and you don't, and also too, like you don't want to take on more work than you can. So like if you when wherever you could advocate, that would be good because then you're gonna get stressed out, and then you're gonna get home and still be stressed out. And again, like if you're stressed and anxious enough, again, it's going to materialize in your body. You know what I mean? It might um, do something with your digestive system. I know that when I have gotten super anxious about something, like I even begin to feel it like in my heart, like my heart palpitations. So like this is why like for some of y'all, like breaking out of the comfortable, uncomfortable state is like it's a must for you. Like in general, you should do it, but like if you weren't convinced enough, like check in with your body because there's some things happening, not just psychologically, but actually like really manifesting on your body due to this stuff. And then my last one for y'all, don't want to keep y'all long, was that again, family is one of the big ones that we need boundaries with. But I'm gonna tell you about somebody who I had to have boundaries with because basically financially this was going to impact me among other things. So I have a family member. I'm not going to say who it is. For anybody who's watching that knows me personally, probably knows exactly who I'm talking about, like for probably all of these circumstances. But this particular person is somebody who, like, I mean, he be acting like a whole hooligan, unfortunately, to this day. And basically, um, you know, he got into a lot of altercations, things that would get him in trouble. And obviously, you get penalized, the law enforcement gets involved, all this stuff. And so I would get very concerned for him a lot, like I mean, he's been through so much. And I just remember just like really like I remember multiple times where I would just like weep, really weep over him and just like have these like breakdowns over some of the things that like he got into, and just the idea of like, oh man, well he's, because there's a lot of mental health involved in this particular story with this person. And so, you know, the idea of like, oh man, he's not home, or like where is he at, like is he safe and whatever. But really it was just like certain repetitive things that he decided to do, like he wasn't learning from certain situations. But again, I guess I think I can save the day or something. You know what I mean? And so I just kept feeling like, oh man, like what can I do? And this person would call me um often for favors, and like, because I'm just like, okay, you fam, that's fam bam right there, that's my blood. Like I have to do what I can. Um like a lot of the time I would offer my help. I would offer my time, energy, and in many cases, if like in like 90% of the cases, money, like legitimate. I dare say 95. No, let's put it to 99.9, just like the hand sanitizers. 99.9% of the time, this was money. And so I'm just over here like looking at my bank account, I'm like, I can help you. Feasibly, I can help you. And so I'll be like, okay, okay. But then there were times, but it just kept getting repetitive, and so I had to make a decision at one point to be like, you know what? Once again, looking at my bank account, I'm like, I actually do have the funds to help you, but you're kind of like abusing this, and like, and also, what about me? Like, what if I want to use the extra funds I have to go somewhere nice or do something for myself. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like I'm also paying rent and I'm also doing this. Like I have things. And so even though I could do what he was asking, I was just like, no, this is gonna be a bigger problem. And I said no. And when I tell you, saying no to toxic people, sheesh. So that ended up being really ugly, and it resulted in a lot of verbal abuse and just him insulting my intelligence. And I'm like, how are you gonna insult my intelligence when you're asking me for a favor? Like, so you really like, okay. But anyways, so I had to stand my ground. Otherwise, I would have been like super duper broke. Basically funding him to act wild out in the streets, out in these streets, man. Like he would have just been, yeah. So I've been funding his hooliganness. I know that's not a word. Couldn't really think of another word. I couldn't think of another word, but like I would have been funding that. Like, no, like how is this man gonna learn? So, oh my gosh, I make myself laugh sometimes. I'm sorry, bear with me. This is like, anyways, this is very unconventional, but yeah, so I'm like, I'm not going to financially support this. And among other things too, because a lot of drama was surrounding him as well. And so, like, for my mental health, so even if it wasn't about finances, he was just finding something to argue with me about, or there was just a lot of drama going on. And me, when I did not have good boundaries, was getting pulled into it, and I wanted to help him resolve his stuff. So it's just like it wasn't healthy for me. And so now I'm just like I can't really interact with the person, every once in a blue, if I have the capacity, which I often don't, because this is still a recurring problem for this person. Um, but I will pick up. But if I pick up, I got to make the conversations really short, because again, when I talk to him, it goes from 0 to 5,000 like immediately. So so I had to make some of these. Um, I had to implement some of those boundaries, and so um, but yeah, but imagine, right? Imagine if I had not learned these lessons, if I did not have that boundary with this person, or I didn't have boundaries with work, and I didn't have boundaries surrounding how I was going to volunteer my time or do or serve. Um, at the congregation I was going to, and just even my living situations. Like, when I don't have these boundaries, I crumble, and that was one of the things that really, really made me realize, like, okay, I need to do something different, because, like, this is too much for me. Like, I like, my soul is screaming for peace, and I just is madness. You know what I mean? And so that's what I really want to impart to all of you. And that's why I felt compelled to get on the live, to just speak through this, personally, just to kind of show you, kind of encourage you to think about how this shows up in your life and why it's important. You know what I mean? Because the thing is that for me, lack of boundaries or being a people pleaser was a character issue. And so you are the common denominator wherever you go. So if you don't deal with this, like, this is why this is important. Here's the big moral of the story. If you haven't been listening to me the whole hour, listen to this part. If you don't deal with this, it is going to cause problems for you in every aspect of your life. So that's the too long didn't read version of, that's of everything I said. Too long didn't read. Deal with this stuff in your character. It's important, for how you show up, in your personal life, especially in the workplace, and wherever else you, whatever else you do out in the community. An additional thing I'll add to that is, if you don't work on this stuff, um, toxic people will come into your life and they will rob you. Um, you know what I mean? Like, they will rob you. And I don't mean like literal money robbing. I hope that doesn't happen to anybody, but emotionally and energy wise, that will happen to you. And so that's why this is super duper core. And even for myself, again, these stuff typically, um, comes about, when, from the time that we're young. So that's why it's just like, it is a huge super duper rabbit hole. And so it's definitely time for you to assess. And I want to also present this question to those watching, about, are you ready to break out of this? Do you recognize this in your life? And two, what are you going to do about it? You know, because I think a lot of people can recognize it. But again, right, the reason why I call this the being comfortable in the uncomfortability is because the thing about, like, toxic cycles is that it's strangely comforting. It's because it's safe. It's what we know, right? So I've been doing this. I had been stuck in with lack of boundaries since I was young. It's what I know. It's what I'm used to. I by nature, I was not the confrontational type, and so it's just like, okay, I know I'm hurting. I know that, like, something got to change. Like, I'm in some cases, you can even feel like loss of identity a little bit, like, oh, who am I? I feel like I'm just this chameleon, like, I'm just serving and I'm just doing all this stuff because I just want to be accepted in whatever space that I'm in. So it just like, gosh, this is not the time for me to lose my train of thought. Anywho, what was I saying? Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, there it is. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Um, so yeah, you get comfortable with this because it's all you know. But deep inside yourself, you're wanting that out. But the thing is that the out will take a lot of work, because again, I am 30 years old, and so it has been a lot to uproot something that's been there since since I was in like diapers or shorts, or I don't know, whatever. But yeah. Anyways, that's my live for today. And again, if you wish to grow in this area, and to really improve your quality of life and have a more fulfilling life in your personal life and in the workplace and in all places where you must show up on the day to day, you know, hit me up. I got some resources for you. Message me on Facebook. My link is in the description. So you can message me there. I, I'm available for access, and yeah, regardless if you are going to work with me on really trying to get this going and seeing how you can begin to work on this stuff. Continue to just like, subscribe, share. Um, yeah. So if you just want to kind of eat from the content, I'm here for you wherever you need me, but just offering my services to you because I am in the business of freeing people all day, every day. I love to see people really flourish. It's really, it's just a great thing. It's just a great thing. So, anyways, y'all are awesome, and yeah, I support you in just your growth journey and your in the ways that you will flourish, what you will do in the future. But again, yeah, I am here. Comment, message me on Facebook, whatever, however you want to connect with me and ask questions. Actually, even before I close, if anyone has questions now, you're free to just kind of chime in. But I'm basically gonna close, so I'll give a little bit of time in case anybody's got things they want to say. All right, cool. Well, I will conclude, but again, thanks everyone who took the time to watch, and I hope that it was super duper helpful for you. Till next time, peace.